Hey everyone, welcome to another amazing best in class something episode of the Orita Podcast. I have a co-host today, Dr. Daniel Brady, who is co-founder. I don't know. Anybody who's listening to this probably knows who he is. He's a smart one on the team. DB runs the engineering product ML side of the house. I run the go-to-market side of the house, and we have Kelsey from Klaviyo, who is, smart on the DB side of the scale. So I had to bring DB in so he could ask the tough questions. Kelsey Capps, I want to get out of the way and let you introduce yourself. We met 6 months ago, a year ago, almost at this point, and have been like loving every interaction plus watching you build, but maybe you can intro yourself, your role, and then we'll go into your background and kind of be off to the races.
Yeah, happy to. So I'm Kelsey Capps. I am a product area lead for Klaviyo. The area that I lead is our analytics, personalization, and a bunch of our AI capabilities as well. In particular, our analytics area, which is where I've spent a lot of my early time here, and just a little bit about like how I even got here. I've been working on consumer data and analytics since 2010. I've been in like AdTech, MarTech, and CDPs pretty much since the beginning. And it was so interesting because it was like whether it was, consumer behavior online from advertising, enterprise, restaurant, and retail data, going from Square and going to Klaviyo, competitive intelligence. What was so fascinating was understanding like how brands interact with their customers and getting those right signals so they know how to talk to and how to build relationships with them. And through each step from like the CDP, which is working with enterprises, to Square, where you get down to the smallest owner operator, like understanding the scale at which people are trying to just communicate with individual people that are out there interested in their products is where Klaviyo, I felt like, was in this really nice happy middle where we're working with small brands, we're working with big brands, but we're really valuing that data that brings those signals about what customers care about up to the brands that are trying to give them the products that they want. So it's a bit about how I got here.
I love it. You've worked for so many cool companies, and like the spirit of actually like truly seeing like the Square merchant who could be, the small coffee shop all the way through some of the biggest brands out there on Klaviyo. I actually want to talk a little bit about the product management side first before we go into maybe like the analytics and personalization, what you're actually building.
Sure.
One question that always fascinates me is like, how do you go get customer feedback? How do you make sure when you're building something for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, like I don't know how many, merchants there were on Square, probably millions or whatever it is. Like, how do you actually go get feedback in the right way?
It's so interesting, and you're going to hate this answer, but it depends is really the answer, but I can elaborate on that. So for example, when I was working with enterprises and you're really trying to get like product feedback and customer feedback, and it's more B2B, you're like the people who are using it are these big brands with big marketing teams, and you're trying to build really cool products. Getting in those rooms with those folks is how I start. You just need to be talking to people. You even noticed I like insert myself into every on-site and conference and things that get me FaceTime with these customers.
Yeah.
Getting into the boardroom with the team at Chipotle of like trying to talk to their board members, of like talk to their marketers and their digital media manager and the people who are really trying to like, these are the problems that we have and understanding those problems. But it's something like Square where it's more of like the volume of customers you're working with is so huge. Being able to implement really efficient in product and surveys that go out and bringing that to scale so you're still getting those signals. But what a lot of folks do wrong is that you'll get all those signals, you'll send out surveys, you'll have those like in product, like what did you think, get some feedback, and then it just gets dumped into an inbox or a database that you never end up looking at again. And really building out the insights, and obviously someone who's into insights, building out the dashboards that signal comes into, where I can start getting, impact, cost, quality, like what do these customers care about? Building that infrastructure for yourself, it does take time, but a lot of folks skip that step. And if you're not building a really solid way to consume the insights you're gathering from your customers, getting that feedback somewhere that you can now do something with it, both qualitatively and quantitatively, help you make product decisions, then you're like missing this huge chunk. So there's like the talking to folks, but then how do you scale that when your customer base is just much larger?
And so Kelsey, like that's really interesting because as you mentioned, Klaviyo kind of like straddles both of those, right? You have the small business to the big. And so are you essentially doing both at like the same time at a place like Klaviyo, where you're just like, you have obviously the discoverable stuff and the things like that might be how you really talk to all the SMBs at scale in order to understand what they're doing, but then you're like sitting in the room and talking to Spanx or whatever it is, like when you're doing like the bigger sort of
Totally.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I did at Klaviyo was I started first like just ingratiating myself with all the sales and CSMs internally and talking to them about what they were hearing from customers.
Sure.
And then
Yeah.
once they started hearing what I could help them with, I would say, hey, bring me into your customer calls. They would
Yeah.
do like weekly syncs with a customer, or when they're in the sales pipeline, they're starting to talk to these brands and hearing like what are the things they want to see from us before they
Right.
sign that contract or make that deal. And now I'm like getting into these sessions that are with sales and CSMs, and they're our actual customers like multiple times a week, so I can keep getting that signal. And then there's so much coming in, leveraging all the new AI tools. One of the tools we use is Glean, which at first I was skeptical,
Right.
but when we hooked it up to our Salesforce, where a lot of those early
Yeah.
conversations are being recorded, our product pulse systems, where a lot of CSMs are giving feedback that is hard to consume at volume, that leveraging those AI tools and connecting that to Claude and Cowork to automate some of the reports
Yeah.
I get, I've really been able to scale out both like those in-person moments, those touch points, and also just like everything that's coming in to Klaviyo from like our commercial teams, which are much more like at scale.
Yeah. We've kind of, I mean, we're at such a different scale than you guys, but we've even noticed that sort of improvement ourselves, especially like when, our great CX team, like they might not even realize that they're kind of doing customer discovery. They're just like trying to help and answer. And so they don't even know to like capture that as feedback for product, because it's just like, they're just like trying to riff for the brand to help them out really. And we've noticed that like a lot of those sorts of tools like Glean and stuff like that, it's just like so good at being like, there's actually like 5 feature requests that are here, of which maybe our 6% maybe like realized there was one, but it was just because they're like talking, and then all of a sudden there's like all this super great insights. And then for me to go and be like, okay, like, hey Steven, let's go back, get them back on a call and like actually talk about these sorts of issues and see if that like how big of a pain point that is. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta say, we had an integration with Zendesk, was just our support team. Cause again, support people don't even realize they're capturing feature requests.
Yeah.
Cause like every
Totally.
workaround that they give a brand was actually really a feature request.
100%.
And what would happen though is that the Zendesk integration, each ticket was like this giant just wall of text that was, they'd taken the whole two-way conversation, just slapped it in a ticket. And like, it was so hard to parse through. But now that we can just feed that all through AI, I'm like getting so many interesting little insights that are like, that was a workaround that's come up like 12 times. We should fix that,
Kelsey, I've kind of 2 different paths I want to stay on the thread. One is, are you training CSMs for types of questions to ask, or like how to do discovery? Because like, yes, things will show up, but you could also like get them to get more things to show up. And then the second is, how do you bring along the engineering org? And like, now you've got this unlimited amount of data and unlimited amount of features, but I'll come back to that. Let's just start with, do you train your CSMs or like get the org to think about how do we do better discovery?
I will say that discovery, I know, is a big priority we have like this enablement team internally that is all about training our CSMs and helping them understand the product. I personally haven't created training materials, although your question is now making me think like, should I? This is actually a good idea.
We've literally, as we're rolling out it's top of mind selfishly for me, because we just rolled out our SMS product and now we're redoing our direct mail product with machine learning under the hood. And I'm like, our CS team is, to DB's point, like implicitly getting all these requirements, but it's like, they could also explicitly get more or like explore the boundaries better. Anyway, sorry, keep going. Yeah.
No, that's really interesting actually, because like when I chat with sales folks and I'll join calls with them, they'll tell me afterwards, like, hey, the kind of questions you're asking are things that I now want to start asking customers myself.
Cool.
Exactly.
And but like, I can't scale that to our entire CS team, or I haven't scaled it that way because it's been more like, I mean, I've met most of them by now because again, I insert myself into all this stuff. I like doing that. But you're now making me think that like some sort of codifying the kinds of questions I ask when I go in and do this kind of discovery would be helpful, especially during onboarding with customers. So thank you for making me think about that.
Cool.
No, and just to even rip on this before, is that like, for us, especially when we're like building new channel products, all this kind of stuff like that, it's just like our CX team is like very good at being like, hey, are you interested in SMS? Are you interested in direct mail? It's like, great. And then we'll go through and we'll like realize like, oh, this is, and then I find myself asking, they get on a call with them, I find myself asking and answering like the same sort of things. Like, well, who's the audience? Well, and actually they can get that information from me too, right? Before they do it. And so then they go, are you interested in SMS? Cool. What is your list size and how frequently, like they're really basic signing things. But like at first it was just like, are you interested in SMS? Yes, no. And then I'd come in and ask them like, all right, let's talk about your SMS program, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, they can do a little bit of that discovery myself. And so like, there's this like really nice feedback loop. We're early stages. We need it to get better.
Nobody
But
knows
then we
how big
found
we
it's
are.
really
Okay. Like this is a podcast, right? We're obviously big time.
plus AI. No,
You guys
but
are a big deal.
I've definitely
We're a
noticed
pretty
it.
big deal.
I've definitely noticed that is helpful. And and what's also cool is there's just like a hunger because it's, there's strong engagement to your point, like as you said with the sales team and stuff like that. It's like, oh, these are also questions that I want to know. It makes them have a deeper relationship with the brands and stuff like that. It's to know more expansively what is going on with the brand and the program. So yeah.
So Kelsey, you have a ton of
Yeah.
good ideas. You do your own discovery. You're not using Glean or all the tools, and there's unlimited things you can build. And how do you bring an engineer in org? And again, we're talking about like you're a really great product leader, and so I'd be remiss to not like ask generic product advice. But like today, how do you bring a team along? Is it like the same principles as before, but you just have more data, or is like how you're getting the team to like want to go build with you changing as well?
Yeah, it's so interesting of engaging engineering because to be fair, I try to also respect, I have like so much respect for our engineers and I'm very close friends with a lot of them. It's why I do what I do. I've been friends with engineers pretty much my whole career. It's always who I like gravitate to, them and CS people. But not every engineer is interested in being close to the customer. Sometimes they're just more interested in problem solving. And so something that I do as a product manager is I do care about getting to know the engineers across. I mean, I have like 9 different teams that I work with, but I would like to say that I know the engineers across them pretty well. And I kind of know which ones care about this and care about that. And I love working with the engineering managers to be like, hey, does so-and-so, I don't like name any names, but does so-and-so over here have like a really interesting problem to solve this sprint? Because if not, they're going to get bored. Let's make sure they have a really cool like modeling problem. They want to do something interesting. But then there are folks who actually like are really good product sense in the engineering area that are fascinated. And sometimes I'll bring them in I'll be like, hey, like so-and-so, do you want to come with me on this call? You can hear some of this feedback firsthand. And they've even come back to me and said like, hey, that was really valuable. Like, it's just really, not only did I get to hear their feedback, but I got to hear their excitement about the feature. And you don't get to hear that a lot. It doesn't trickle down all the time. And so not only bringing folks in, but also trying to like share customer quotes or like we use a Gong to do recordings, but just sharing like snippets from recordings with customers that have like mentioned a feature that they've built. I'm just trying to keep that feedback loop going of, hey, the stuff that you're building, people really care about and are excited about. And we also have like monthly just like all area team meetings. And that's also a good opportunity to have a couple slides where we like have customer verbatims, we have some examples, and I like tell the engineers to their faces, like, these folks are getting a lot out of the stuff that you built and you should feel really proud of that. And like, let's keep going. But it's all, it's a balance because not everyone has the same engagement in that. So it's a kind of just knowing who your audience is, which it goes for marketers too, right?
Yeah. Thank you. I want to dive more deeply into the reporting, analytics, personalization, like your purview, right? And to your point, it's obviously broad and you're in touch with 9 different teams. The first question I have is like walking into Klaviyo and having served, Square has a different customer base, but a lot of similarities for at least a subset of those customers. Were there expectations you had walking in and starting to build out the suite or like enhance the Klaviyo suite that were like, actually, I completely misunderstood what our customers want that has changed over time? Where I want to get to is like, what do your customers want in the suite and like, what are you building towards? But I'm curious, were there any expectations that were just not met?
Say expectations that weren't met. Here's the thing is that like businesses that use tools like a Klaviyo, big or small, whether they're the smallest seller or the biggest customer, they never have enough time. The most valuable commodity on the planet is time. And when you can save a seller or a marketer time, they love it. And not every analytic or organization that has analytics is building it in a way that is simple to understand, easy to find, easy to use, and easy to action on. Especially that like built-in actionability is usually that last mile that isn't being closed by most tools. Even at Square, their size, really, like they were sitting on a lot of data, but each individual account would sometimes not like, because they weren't sharing data across, there's not a lot you could really do with it when you're a very small brand with only 3,000 customers. So when which is fine, like there's a certain amount of things we can enable for them and certain modeling we can use across the network to help guide them in the right direction. But when I got to Klaviyo, I mean, Andrew Bielecki, our CEO, he started this as a data company. And when I came into Klaviyo, I realized we were sitting on this awesome infrastructure of data that we were like tapping this much of, like just the very top layer. And even then, what we built was kind of there for people to look at, but not necessarily like being made to be immediately actionable and easily understood. And so the last 2 years is really like 2.5 years that I've been there has been a lot of like, how do we start building that actionability in? How do we start making this simpler and easier to understand? And now that we have all of these various LLM tools, this is why I've been like one of the blog authors for a lot of the stuff we do at Klaviyo about connecting our MCP server to Claude, because the challenge folks have had for so long is that like, I know the reports I want, or I know the data, the insight I want to get to, but I have to like, I mean, even the enterprises that use Tableau and Looker and Power BI and all of those, they don't want to. No one wants to use Tableau.
Right.
No offense, Tableau, but like no one wants to use it, right? Like they use it because that they think it's the only way they can get at this very specific nuanced insight that they want. And if you could just connect that data to something we use natural language to get there faster, and then now also we can orchestrate on it, like that's the dream I've had for like the 15 years of my data career. And it feels like finally we can really do that. And so the thing though at Klaviyo is that there's a lot of data hygiene and just things we need to do, which is like the unsexy stuff, but the stuff that I care about that makes all the models built on top of it that much more powerful. So I think the thing I expected coming in was that we had more data. And the thing that felt like a gap was like what they were really doing with it. So just to recap that whole spiel.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's one of those things, and you know, as someone who built Looker at a bunch of companies, you know, that was really useful. Like the whole conceit is, to your point, is that like you usually start at some top level thing, and you just want to keep drilling down. Like that's what makes all those tools so powerful. And now they're able to do that in a more interactive way that you can kind of like stay focused, or you can like kind of diverge very easily because you're now like speaking to something essentially that allows you to kind of do that. It's just like, it's like such a powerful way in which to get to like the kind of actionable aspects about it, which is like what everyone cares about. It's really interesting.
Kelsey, when you talk about actionability, right? And so how has that changed over time? And like, what do you think is changing in the next 6 months, right? It was cool. Give me, right? It's always been like data is fine, information, but like, is it to what end do you want this data and what question are you answering? And that was like when I was running previous businesses, that was always it. And now it feels like so much stuff is just then going to be turned into like actually an action. Is that the path that you're seeing as well, where it's like starting to automate stuff that somebody's already laid out that they want to happen? Or
yeah, that's exactly it. And I think even like 6 months to a year ago, the way we thought of actionable insights was like, hey, you're on a chart, we're on a dashboard where we've given you this really cool data view. And in that view is not just data. There's like these really interesting insights, these takeaways we want you to have. And then from that insight, can we get you straight from there to like a targeting moment, like targeting, like building a segment? Because a lot of insights is like you can optimize a campaign with it, but a lot of it is like helping them understand who their customers are, how they're buying, what products they're buying. And that becomes these like targeting moments and flow automating moments. So how can you like create like in our RFM page where we allow you to make these RFM segments with a single click, or where from a funnel you can see where you have this drop off moment and you can make a sequential funnel that becomes a segment with a click. And we're giving you this action center where it's like, hey, build a win back flow from this RFM insight we've just given you. Those are all like these one click or a couple clicks away, but we've like made it easier to get from this thing we wanted you to know to something that feels powerful. But that was like 6 months to a year ago, which at this point is dinosaur ages. Like we're way past that. We can use agents to orchestrate this stuff now. And so a lot of our effort is going into all the internal APIs and all the skills and tools that we need to build to make all of these things that used to be like a click. That click now should be a tool that an sub-agent can call, that an agent orchestrator can call. So when someone says, help me understand my repeat purchase cycle for my most valuable customers, and then help me build a flow that is targeting them with the next best product I think you should buy. And it should just have all of those features and insights that we've built as tools that it can call in and just orchestrate that and like build that flow for them. Like that's like in the next 6 months, as we've heard, we mentioned Composer at K Sydney. We're going to be talking about at K London and K Boss. But that's what Composer really is. And every single team at Klaviyo is working on all of these tools and all these sub-agents that will ladder up into it's going to be a roadmap of work to get to this like full big picture, but Composer is already live in beta in the product. And like, this is exactly what we're working towards.
DB, I have a quick follow-up, but do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. There's so much it's so interesting. So I think a couple questions I have here is that like where, the where to start aspect, like even for like the user, right? Because like right now it's like the composer, you're talking to it like you talk to ChatGPT or anything like that. And so how do you balance that with like sometimes the insight comes from the fact that like to go back to old school dinosaur land that is valuable is that sometimes you're like seeing these visualizations, these dashboards in order to do that. So like how do you guys balance that sort of stuff? Because like what you said is like a really phenomenally awesome goal to set. If someone knows that that is the question and the prompt that they want to give, but it's like, how do they even get to that place first? And like, how are you balancing like that sort of aspect with it?
I'm so glad you say that because as someone who loves data and loves analytics, I don't think that dashboards and us, there's like a push and a pull, right? You can either push insights to someone where you've already anticipated what you think they'll care about and put that on a dashboard for them. And then there's pull where they're asking for something specifically.
Totally.
And Composer and Claude and all that are really good at this pull and making that more powerful than ever. But I want to tell you what I think is like a really funny story. So the engineering teams that are specifically working on this like infrastructure that is Composer, one of the engineers came to me the other day and he's like, hey, we've been talking to some customers and I really want to try to like be more proactive with what we can like suggest that they do with this tool. And I was like, great. Do you mean like kind of pre-made prompts, like suggestions of what to ask? He's like, no. Like, what if we like just already had the things we think they care about just like on a page? And I was like, that's analytics, bro. Like that's our dashboards. Like we have those and sure we can add more of those, but like that's what that is. And so it's funny, like even when people are talking, getting really excited about AI, even talking to many customers, it comes back to like, but what if you already anticipated what I wanted and you could show me that and then I can dig deeper, but like help me. Sometimes these brands, even big brands, sometimes they don't even know what they should care about or don't know where to dig deeper. And they kind of need that first layer of like, just help me understand who my customers are, how they're buying, where are my gaps, what's performing well, what's not performing well. Just like give me the landscape so that I have a baseline to work with. And that's where I think these dashboards like truly don't go away. But I think that the dashboards and the flexibility of them can be made smarter and just more intuitive once we have more of this tooling kind of integrated into it.
Yeah. And also more customizable because you know that like certain brands might value certain aspects or like this is like the number one thing that they care about at this moment and it might change over the next 4 months. And so like what's on there, how prominent they are and all that kind of stuff I think is also super interesting too.
It's like my dream for our dashboards. I would love it if our because we're building this like new, like we're calling it flexible dashboarding, but it's basically like AI generated dashboards. And we're like actively working on it. It's going to have like an MVP that comes out pretty soon. And then we'll be continuing building on it for there. But what I would love is if someone could just have a goal, be like, I'm trying to understand, my goal is to grow revenue for this particular product line. Like as a marketer, I come in, I'm trying to grow this product line by the end of the year or by BFCM. And it, boom, gives them a dashboard with like 7 different cards that all have different touch points. And some are product breakdowns and some are that. And also the fact that any system that is trying to show data to a marketer or a seller, it needs to know about them. It needs to have context. And that's something where I will recognize that we have some gaps right now that I'm pushing internally for us to build more of, which is like having the metadata about the account itself. Do they sell pizza or do they sell shoes? Are they seasonal and are they based in Atlanta or are they based in New York? It's different pricing structures, different demographics of consumers. All of that should go into what we think they care about. So if we are going to be building dashboards or building these things on their behalf and like pushing data to them, can we be smarter about what we think they should know?
One of the framings that we use is like, we want to understand, like we want to impact at the strategy level. And so they might ask for a dashboard or set that goal of, hey, I want to increase my revenue something or move this product 20% more or something. And then the question is, can we go surface the playbook that will help them do it? And in order to do that, we need to know, do they use Klaviyo SMS or not? If they don't, we can't serve them, right? Are they open to spending on direct mail? Are they open to changing their underlying strategy of, hey, right now we send 4 campaigns a week. Would they move up to sending 8? And so like understanding the boundaries of the strategy to then like give them a playbook that they can go execute against. I think the thing that is fascinating to me, one of the many things that is fascinating to me about your role is something you kind of hinted at before is like, we got to get data hygiene. In the Orita experience, like most brands use Klaviyo as a CDP, whether they know it or not. It's like their data is there. So cool. But that you have 9 different teams you mentioned that you're interacting with. And like,
a lot of different engineering pods and teams. Yeah.
But also the surface area of the Klaviyo experience for a brand is massive. And so like getting the data, it's still like, what is the next best action they should take or what should they do? If you are a brand starting and like you go from basic analytics and you now kind of are upgrading your 10 million revenue, 50 million revenue, whatever, but you're starting to scale. Where do you even start when you start thinking about like tapping into the analytics suite? Like you could go anywhere, especially with the MCP. Like I don't even know how I would start. So give us the primer of like what the best brands are doing.
Yeah, I mean, primer of best brands, it's crazy because the jobs to be done as you expand and grow as a company, and it just changes, right? Of like, how are you thinking about your customers? I think when customers are smaller, I mean, as when I say customer, I mean the brands. When brands are smaller, it's understanding how their customers engage with them and generally just like, how is this relationship working? And that's where marketing performance is a great place to start for like that size. It's just like, I have a giant base of customers. I can maybe do some light segmentation, but generally I just need to know how they're engaging and then start optimizing that. What's the best relationship building technique? What's the best tone? How do I get that brand sentiment really strong? Get them really like sticky with my products. When you grow though, you can do a lot more segmentation to be more targeted of like, this group of people cares about this group of people cares about that. And that's where I encourage brands to really dig into like the consumer behavior on like the RFM side and digging into segment analytics of like segmenting them by either traits or properties. We have a page called Audience Performance where it's taking like just revenue and CLV and size of segment and growth of that segment into a single table. So it's like, how do you think about grouping your customers? Like, is it based on what they're buying or when they buy, or let's say you're collecting properties. Also something I encourage brands to do if they're not already doing, all the on-site forms and ways of grabbing more information, like you leverage that opportunity, ask them quizzes and surveys. And even with our awesome K-Social where you can, in the DMs, like create these custom auto replies to like ask for more information. Like, oh, you want to join our list? What do you like to do? You like to run? Cool. Like now you know that you're a brand who sells athleisure and they're specifically a runner. You might now target them with something. But if you don't have that information, demographics, psychographics, product affinities, it's hard to do more. So like one thing I'll tell brands is like start with collecting more information about who your customers are. Cause like, I feel like that sounds like such a party line, but there's something I like to say a lot is that customers really want to be understood. They don't just want to be targeted. And when you do marketing really, really well, they feel understood and not just marketed at. And that is where having all of that additional information about your profiles, like about those end consumers, allows you to personalize that content and segment it. So like starting with that, just like, who are my customers? Help me understand more about them. Let's start targeting them specifically by these groups and see how different content performs. And you can really like grow a cool strategy from there, getting all the way into like your product catalog and very specific merchandising and product recommendations. But every brand should try to understand who their customers are and what they care about first before you just push products at them. Like, how do you know that that's what they want?
Yeah, I was going to say that like, I agree very strongly. In fact, one of our customers now, when I met them before they were a customer, they asked me this thing about like, what company can I use to get all this data, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, you could ask your customers. I would recommend that. And I connected them with a post-purchase survey tool. I was like, the thing that can answer that question right now is like the NSA, or you could just ask your customers, to get that same amount of information. And I think that it's like one of those things that like, not only to your point about the customers being understood, is that a lot of customers are like more than willing to do that engagement and to give you that information because they want to be understood, right? And like it's an active part of the process. And that, I think it's good. There's lots of great data enrichment tools that you can also use and stuff like that. But a thing that I do emphasize to some brands is I'm just like, well, not only do you know this information about Aaron because you asked Aaron and he answered it, and they're like, oh, well, I don't know about these 70% of the people who didn't answer that question. I'm like, but you now know this about Aaron, and you also now know that he wants you to know that, which is like doubly, it's like not only that you have this information, but it's also an engagement signal that like he wants to be marketed and understood in that way. It's like, it's much better than just like knowing that information about everyone. It's that there's also an engagement signal tied to that is also extremely informative.
I love that. And like quick aside on that, one thing I'll tell some brands is that if they have like one of those no reply inboxes or like an info inbox that just no one's checking, they're missing one of the biggest retention signals
Yeah,
they
for
have.
sure.
There's just like
For
no
sure.
one's looking at that inbox. And those are literally customers that have reached out to you. You didn't even ask them to. They replied to your like info at email or support at, like those are people who want to engage with you in some way. Maybe it's because they have a complaint, but a complaint could be turned into loyalty if you address it and then build that relationship. And so I'm like, hey, somebody, if no one's been looking at that inbox, someone go check it and turn that into a segment because those are folks that want to be talked to, you know?
Yeah.
Kelsey,
Totally.
I ran a brand for about a decade and we wrote a handwritten note to every customer. And I had for the first 6 months, they got pretty shitty at the end, but at first they were really good notes. But you know, when we were tapering, It's like, thanks so much. Bye.
Wrist gets tired, you know?
Yeah, we were exhausted. But at the beginning, I also would send an email and I gave a business card with my cell phone number because I was like, I just want you to give us feedback. And the idea was I never wanted, if somebody were rating us 1 to 5, I like did not care about the 3s. I wanted the 5s or the 1s because I wanted people to take the step and I kept lowering the friction. And the idea of not getting that feedback, especially for brands, is just, it's insane. So I very much appreciate you said that. I also just want to double click on, and I think I captured right, customers want to be understood, not just targeted. It is so in line with how we think about the world. And again, I'm like pulling out the things that I'll talk to brands about, but like if you take off your marketer hat and you put in your consumer hat, right? It's like marketers send you something when they have something to say. It is much more powerful if you figure out when somebody is receptive or when they're listening, and then combine that with exactly what you're saying, the right message, which is, I think, why we actually really like working with your team, is everybody's pretty much aligned on the core goal. Anyway, yeah, I like that phrase. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you want to share screen? I almost feel remiss not to ask you for like a demo, which sounds weird to say, but like, hey, if you're, you know, we work with a lot of Klaviyo's bigger brands, right? We build AI segments, yada, yada. And a lot of them use marketing analytics. A lot of them use obviously so much more your suite. Is there anything that even for like 5 minutes, you want to take a spin and just assume you're talking to like some bigger brands and like show them some places where they should be looking, or again, kind of how to enter the analytics suite?
Yeah, sure. Let me go ahead and pull this up.
TB is going to ask you hard-hitting questions.
Good. Bring it
Yeah.
on.
No, I'm gonna pretend I'm gonna analyze the performance of your brand that you're doing with the fake data. How many are at risk right now, according to our friends?
Okay, let me make sure should be
Yep.
sharing this right here. Okay, good. Excellent. I'm going to drag my Riverside window into the other one. Okay.
Don't tell people how the sausage is made.
Sorry.
This is like a live podcast studio. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't realize. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'm landed here, but I'll say for someone who really hasn't leveraged Klaviyo's analytics at all before, or has very lightly touched it, they've probably, just been on our campaigns page, which, very cool. It has, just a bunch of high level data on it, which is great. And on flows, actually, I think this launched, it's going to be launching shortly. We're going to have some analytics, like overall flow analytics is actually launching either like today or on Monday morning, which is going to be so cool. But if they haven't tapped into it yet, really our dashboards are built for this reason. And so depending on how many channels you have, if you have text messaging, which is like SMS and RCS, you have that here. But, digging into the various widgets that we have available, this is just a great place to start. And I'm in like just a demo account. So everyone keep in mind, all of this is fake data, but this is a great place to start where you can just start digging in. Like I was saying, for smaller brands, you just start with like, hey, how am I talking to my customers? How are they engaging with me? If you're using email, if you're using SMS, you can understand based on campaigns, by flows, by these channels, just some like high level information, which is like, your conversion revenue, your message volume, just to get at that summary of like, hey, let me just understand based on how much I'm sending, how much I actually generating, and how much of is it attributable to those messages versus unattributed, which is the green here, which is just like other revenue we're tracking coming in that wasn't necessarily tied to like a campaign or a flow. And one thing also I'll tell customers is to, when they look at this message breakdown, of really seeing the distribution of how much of your revenue is coming from campaigns versus flows. Because if you're a brand and your chart looks like this, you're not taking advantage of the platforms that you're using. Like flows, basically automating your marketing is so, so powerful because you can also trigger it off of very specific context. You can personalize more. We have flow branch splits now so that you can use our channel affinity that will decide in the moment if that message should be an email or an SMS. So, like your omni-channel strategy in Klaviyo can be that much more powerful. So, there's just so much you should be doing here, and you can really audit like how am I doing? What am I using? And what's it generating for me? And flows will have a much higher revenue per recipient. It's just can be more targeted, more engaged. But that's like kind of in our basics. We have metrics and benchmarks, which can be very exciting. A lot of brands, especially when they first join, dive really deep into our deliverability insights dashboard because if they've never really had a way before to audit like the reputation of their brand and are they hitting people's inboxes and am I doing a good job, this is a great place for folks to get started and just do that initial audit. And once you have your best practices in place, generally your scores and reports should look really good. You bring unsubscribes and bounces especially down. We have it for each of the channels as well. So those are some great ones for people to get started in. But when people go deeper, and this is where when I was getting into more of like really understand your customers, this is where our more advanced analytics that we offer called marketing analytics becomes available. And there's so much here and I don't want to overload. So I'm going to jump straight to our customer insights. So this is where I was mentioning that you can start with just going, hey, who's new? Who's purchasing a lot, who's at risk, needs attention, at risk. The difference there is basically folks who used to be really loyal, high AOV purchasers that are now lapsing versus maybe folks that are 1 to 2 or more recent purchasers that are kind of immediately lapsing out of your brand, which is very common. The recents to at risk, like that's a group that you could make a segment around of like, I want to grab new customers that are starting to lapse out of that initial purchase window that I would expect of a newer customer. Capture them in that moment, like right message, right person, right time can make all the difference for conversion. And so building automation around these life cycle moments is just like a really great starting way. And we've actually even just recently added AI insights that this can help you understand these groups in RFM, like, hey, what's like the key takeaway I should get from this above? And then you were asking earlier, like, how do you make this actionable? That's why we have these action centers built into all of these pages because we're like, hey, not only do we want you to understand your customer base, but we also have some really common use cases that are like just low hanging fruit for most brands that we've just already made available right here at your disposal. A bunch of things. It's got a setup guide in just a few clicks. You can create a current RFM group as needs attention, send them a win back campaign, or send them like a free shipping offer to just like, get them a little bit more interested, whatever it might be. So that's where, all of these kinds of, you can dive into your funnels. Where are people dropping off as they engage on my website, on your e-commerce site from your PDPs to the checkout. And this is what I was mentioning about audience performance is like, when you've decided how you think of and group your customers mentally, is it based on product lines? Is it based on demographics? Is it based on other, custom properties that you've created about them, you've collected from those on-site forums or those conversations? Star those segments, and now you'll be able to see the attributed revenue. How are they engaging by channel? What's their CLV? How big is this group? How has it changed since whatever date range, like since the prior period you're looking at? And it gives you a great way to just start understanding like, who are my customers? How are they engaging with me? Now, the question that the brand would have is like, what do I do about that? And I'll go back to reiterate the flows question, which is the more of this you can think about automating that messaging and those life cycle moments and using some of the tools that you're at your disposal, like our next best product feature, which is taking a look at your entire catalog, understanding repeat purchase timing for each of your products. And what'll happen is that when we model all of this for a profile at the time of send, if you're using next best product, it'll take a look at the product they bought prior. It'll take a look at all of the company-wide and their past purchase data and understand from a product purchase journey perspective, what do most customers buy next when that's has been their entry point to your brand or that was the last product they purchased? Like, what's that second? What's that third product? And so we're bringing that, and that's where you get to like write content. It's not just copy. It's not just images. It's like, did you care what they bought last? Are you staying in theme? Are you sending them the right next product? Right moment, life cycle, understanding who they are. And then right time is where you get into all the AI orchestration we're rolling out, which is things like personalized send time and all of those great features. So I say like just digging in, even just high level, like look at my catalogs, look at my customers, look at my balance between campaigns and flows or by channels, and using that to optimize your marketing program like right out the gate. But there's a lot here. So I don't want to go too far in any direction. Let me know, Aaron, if you had anything in particular you
Well,
wanted to
Kelsey,
look at.
I actually have a question. Like,
Yeah.
what obviously you're measuring where people are clicking and looking. Which part of this are people the most obsessive? Where do people click on the most? Where do they spend the most amount of time? Like, yeah, what is
You
like
mean like
that?
in
What is
our
like?
analytics?
Yeah. No, in the marketing analytics, like what are people clicking over and over again? And this is like what they come back to the most, or like this is where they're most obsessed with.
Yeah, I would say so in this particular area, again, this like
Yeah.
RFM and audience performance tends to be just like people are coming back and checking day over day. Audience performance, when they like they can create a new segment and see it that same day. They're looking again and again and again. Interestingly, not necessarily in marketing performance, but one of the pages where we see the most activity of people really digging in and being excessive is actually on our metrics page. And I love this because brands have
Sure.
so many different integrations that they're using. Again, this is just a demo account, but let's say you're using Recharge because you're a subscription brand, or if you're a restaurant and you're using OpenTable, like this is also where you can go in and understand for like the events you really care about. Like I'm just trying to understand reservations. You can click on one of these, like let's go to just an example one. Let's go to like the placed order, and you can just start digging in to understand what's the volume, like what's my placed order volume over time, and you can filter that by like any event dimension that's coming through on that event. So let's say placed order has like a gift card code. You could literally say like where gift card code is my recent BFCM gift cards that I was selling, and you'll be able to like it seems so simple, but customers actually really care about very specific signals a lot of the time. And when I say customers, I mean like our brands. And I've always found it fascinating that for marketers, even you would think marketers are more interested in like the big, pretty dashboards, but this is one of our most engaged pages in analytics at Klaviyo of like just all of this metric data.
Definitely
So
spent
that's
a
where
lot of time
people
on these pages.
are engaged.
I bet.
Like, I mean, I was like, I know this is fake data, but keep clicking. I want to see what else.
Right? Actually,
wh-
there's a cool one here.
yeah.
I'll just show you in a second. So this is a fun one where UTM underscore source, right? I have to go to active on site. People have been trying to dig into like their ChatGPT, like how much agentic commerce is
Sure.
coming in. So, oh my God, we have all these extra ones. Is this the one with data? Please be the one with data.
You check out where traffic from Orita Podcast.
Right? Let's go to UTM. This.
So
right.
cool.
Yeah. ChatGPT was the other one. Is it this one? So this is all fake data, but like this is, so we are capturing this. You got one. We got one. So I was showing this for one of our, like one of the biggest cosmetics brands that we work with. And they were like going, well, how do I understand how much, agentic commerce is coming in? I was like, let's take a look. And so I just went to this, logged into their account, went to this page. They also had some data coming from Perplexity, which was interesting, but they had actually like a good volume of their active on site people were coming in from ChatGPT. So I was like, hey, like, do you want to capture these like agentic shoppers with any specific messaging? They're like, yeah. I was like, okay, well, then let's go to your customer and marketing analytics. Let's go to funnel analysis. Let's go to like your active on site funnel. There was one where like the first step was active on site, et cetera. I mean, I'm not going to build it all right here, but let's say this first one was active on site. You can actually go in here and you can go on that, the same filter you saw on that other page. You can grab UTM. So you would just grab UTM source. You would say, where are the values ChatGPT. Now it's specifically creating a funnel that's people whose first event was active on site all the way to checkout from people who did ChatGPT. And what we saw was people dropped off. They would go decent amount, go to viewed product, but then actually started checkout. It was like this massive drop off. And so right here, you find that drop off, you click it, you say create new segment. So then that would be people whose step one was active on site where the source was ChatGPT, made it to one of your product pages, but never actually checked out. So they've shown some interest in your brand. Like there's some purchase intent there, but they just, what didn't bring them over the line? And now they can target those folks with a flow and reach back out to them with maybe some specific messaging that's like, hey, discovered us via your favorite AI tool. here's a like AI offer to come back in and explore more, whatever it might be. But they were able to actually create a targeted flow just by like kind of following that thread from the metrics page to funnels to funnel actionability, which is right here.
I think one of the things I appreciate, I mean, in our conversations, but also about your product suite is like, you have to hit different altitudes. You have the CEO or CMO, right? CEO is not maybe in the mix. The CMO kind of is. You have the CRM manager. You guys obviously work with an insane amount of agencies. And even within the agency, you have the head of and the first year person and the strategist in between. I don't know. I find it amazing. I don't have a question. I just think it's really cool. Like even watching you dive deep here, I think maybe the question I have for you is like, so somebody's just getting started, right? And we're almost at time anyways.
hmm
And again, I'm growing. I should come in and I should play around, but is it actually go talk to like a CSM, a salesperson? Like, how do I really go deep? Is it all those setup guides will help you like really understand just everywhere that you could go?
Yeah, I mean, I will say our help documentation is pretty solid. And on the homepage, I mean, the homepage is designed in this way because it's not only trying to give you just a quick snapshot of, pick up where you left off with some things you might want to do, but you have some high level business performance here. And then you have campaigns and flows. So like this is already giving you a jumping off point of like, even just this one little card, like, hey, okay, something's down. All right. Well, now I'm going to click. I see things says click view dashboard. Like, all right, so let me click here. And then now I can go deeper. And so we have tried to start building these like breadcrumbs in the product to just, even if they just landed on the homepage, how do we get them to some interesting insights? I think from this page, I want us to do a lot better of getting you from here to something they can do about it. But I would encourage like our help documents, and we actually have a whole thing called Klaviyo Academy. We have a great education team that builds all these really cool like videos and educational materials that are meant to try to teach folks stuff that's not just like a dry help doc, which we all know those are great, but can be sort of like, it's a slog to get through them. So I say if you have a CSM, then they're also a great resource. Like our CSMs are some of the greatest people I have worked with in my career. And I mean that sincerely. Not only do they care about their customers, but they really dive in and become like these subject matter experts of like how to Klaviyo. And so if you have questions, often they can point you in the right direction or even give you really great like strategic insights of, hey, we recommend you do this or that, or focus on this month. So they're a great resource if you haven't tapped it yet.
I'm glad you mentioned the Academy as well. Like I've been in this ecosystem for 16 years at this point and like seen a lot of big platforms, small platforms, like kind of across the board. And I actually feel like the Klaviyo Academy is one of the best where it's actually like compelling content and it is clear and it's not just fluff. See that? Okay. Thanks for mentioning that. Definitely a great place to start. We are just about at time. DB, do you have one more quick question?
I have one more very serious question. No, it's not a joke question. So we went over what's the most popular in marketing analytics. What is the least popular? And does the engineer who built it know that that's the least popular part of marketing analytics? I'm just kidding. You have the champions part in the all hands monthly. Do you have the opposite, which is like these really floundered? Wow, did you guys do a terrible job?
Do you want me to actually answer that question?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, I will. So this is a great example of where not building clear like insights or actionability can be the most beautiful feature in the world. So we built a feature in marketing analytics called cohort analysis, and everybody asked for it and everyone wanted it. And I was like, I have it in Triple Whale, so you guys have to have it. So we built it, and like every customer I talked to was like, this is a thank you for adding this. They're like, so what do I do with it? And I was like, what do you want to do with it? They're like, I have no idea. I was like, wait, you asked for this feature. You don't know how to use it? They're like, no, I thought you were going to tell me. I just know that I should care about this. And I was like,
totally.
All right. I was like, let's work on that. And it's like, in design wise and engineering wise, it works beautifully. It's really beautiful. But every customer who lands on is like, okay, cool. And then they click away and they're like, I had no idea what to do with all that information. And we get that qualitative feedback too, not just from the click data, which we do see in like the product usage data. And, we've talked like it's not just on the engineer, like that's on what we built without like being a little bit more discerning of just closing a competitive gap. And instead of going, what was the actual problem we're trying to solve? Was this even the right way to do it? Or did it just need more with it? And so it was a great learning moment, I think, for the entire product team, that entire triad that is like design, which is usability, product, which is the why, and engineering, which is the how, right? So
I love it. I see, Aaron, that's why we didn't also build like little card graphs.
This is Kelsey, for what it's worth. This is why I just don't look at data, because I'm like, oh, what am I going to do with this? And then I just trust my gut and then move. Is that
No, it's so
your take?
interesting though. I mean, I think, and I actually really resonate with that as, when Zach and I were at other companies where part of our purview was actually building out the analytics infrastructure and stuff like that. Like you build so many things, you build things that people talk about wanting and they love, and then they're obsessed with for 3 days, but it actually doesn't, to your point, move to that, like, how do I take action off of this thing? And then all of a sudden it's the least visited part of your BI tool. Even if it was like really hard to build, it just like doesn't move the needle.
To be clear, a cohort analysis can be very valuable. Like,
Oh,
we're going to
yeah.
figure out how to close that last mile. There's a lot with seasonality and repeat purchase timing. There's a lot of things you can learn from it, a lot of things they can do with it. It's just like not obvious to most people when they look at this big heat map chart graph and they're like, wait, what do
It
I
can be
even
overwhelming. Yeah.
It's overwhelming. So they're just like, that was cool. And they click away. So like, it's now on like us as a team to come back to that report at some point and close that last piece, which is,
Yeah.
and here's what you do with it. And this is what we
Right.
recommend you do with it, which we're going to get to.
Kelsey, this was really great. We have about a minute left. You already told people check out the Academy, go obviously marketing, analytics, and the entire suite. In the last minute, any last words to the wise, anything else you want to say, any other call to action? And if not, we can also just wrap.
I would just like to reiterate the whole understanding your customers and caring about them. And data can be a way to understand them. But for any brands out there that don't have a feedback loop established where they're, to your point, writing the cards and getting responses, sending out surveys, or even something fun and engaging, like it doesn't have to be a boring, dry, like super dry quiz, like answer these 3 questions. It could be something fun and cool. But if you don't already have a loop to just learn more about who your customers are and what they care about, you're not going to be able to build that really strong loyalty, that really strong sentiment, because when you start using all of these fun AI tools that's like AI generate copy for my campaigns and my SMS messages, you need to know what really resonates, not just from like a quantitative perspective, but like, are you like really touching their souls? Not too hard, but like for people who really care about like Hoka shoes, like they really, really care about them, right? And like they like the vision of the brand and the mission of the brand. And so if you don't have that loop in place, think about how you can build that with your customers and then incorporate that into your data and marketing.
It's a wonderful way to wrap. Kelsey, thank you so much for your time. Can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks across the pond, as they say.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for inviting me. This was really fun. I always love talking to both of you, and the Orita team is so, so cool. Going to see you across the pond. But yeah, thank you again. This was great.
Sorry, just quickly, can you stack rank talking to DB or I? Is there, from an analytics?
Well,
just
I
from
like the
You're an
shirt that
analytic
he's
person.
wearing. I like the
God,
shirt that
I'm
he's
wearing.
wearing better today, so he wins.
All right, fine. Thank you.
Bye. He's like, get out of here.
You guys got to go. I'm Aaron Schwartz, co-founder of Orita AI, where we help hundreds of brands like Spanx, Faraday, and Salt & Stone get the absolute most out of their customer lists. Learn more at Orita.ai or check out my interviews with the founders of Klaviyo, Birdies, Caraway, and plenty more wherever you get your podcasts.